In the classes in here, you'll hear me talk over and over about paying attention, about being intentional. And this does two things. It helps us to craft the life that we want, and it helps us to stay focused on the things that we can impact. There are many things in this world outside of our control. Not that that stops us from talking about them, exercising ourselves over them. What's wrong? What's unfair? What are others doing? We make comparisons, judgments. We maybe even espouse what we would be doing if we get the chance. The thing is, it's so much easier to have an opinion or know the answer when you also know you're never going to have to deliver on it. Ask any political party ever. I talked in the introduction about our tendency to drift through life, doing the same stuff over and over, repeating patterns that maybe don't serve you, and then wondering why you feel stuck. We've all been there. Visiting these places occasionally is completely normal, but living there is a bit like living at the bottom of a dead-end street without knowing how to turn around or reverse. Neurologically, we mostly don't like uncertainty. We crave the familiar, even if your familiar is thrill-seeking and adrenaline-fueled. It's what you know or feel comfortable with. Let's face it, there's so much noise in our lives that unless we find some ways to manage the stimulation overload, most of us would just implode. Your brain's job, very oversimplified, is to keep you alive, so it regulates what it can, and it acts as an early warning system for impending doom. Physiologically, that's relatively straightforward. We make constant micro-adjustments to our homeostasis in order to remain within a manageable range. And when we fall out of that range, we often need medical help. Psychologically, we attempt to do the same thing, but it's a little more complex in that we're processing incomplete information most of the time. When you add into that our filtering system, which is based on our experiences, beliefs and memories, as well as those we've inherited, it would be fair to say that most of what we experience as reality is a combination of guesswork and story. It's no wonder several people can experience the same incident, all have different experiences, all remember different things, and each fervently argue for their version of the truth. But before we all disappear into a fit of despair, this is a good thing. Most of us have some control over what goes on in our head. The challenge is that in order to reduce some of the noise, we create neurological fast tracks through pattern recognition or habit, and these become who we are, how we show up in the world, if you like, which is great if we're feeding ourselves rich, empowering stories. It's rather like nourishing your body. When you eat well, drink plenty of water and get a good sleep, you feel better. When you snack on junk, have a beer too many, maybe you don't feel quite so good once the buzz has worn off. Feed your brain unhelpful stories, too much comparison or scaremongering, and actually you don't feel as good. Which brings me back to intention, or rather paying attention in the first instance. Throughout this program, I'm going to be asking you to pay attention to how you feel, to what you notice, and to what impact that has. Because this is how we get intentional about how we live our lives, how we spend our time, and most importantly, how we want to feel. When we know who we are and what matters to us, then we can do the course correcting, starting with the small stuff we have control over. Are you ready to dive in and do a bit of soul searching?